Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast.
Today we're looking at Webull, ticker BULL. The big question is it a good time to buy now?
We want to hear from you. Subscribe, like, and comment to support the show. And if there's a specific company you want us to look into, leave it in the comments below.
So let's get into the analysis. When we look at Webull, the core story right now, it's really this fundamental turnaround, almost shocking, actually.
Okay.
We're seeing what looks like a critical inflection point in their financials. Moving from that aggressive cash-burning growth phase to, sustainable profitability.
Right. Sustainable profitability. That's the phrase that jumps out because, these brokerage disruptors, they often burn cash for years. So what are the actual numbers? What defines this inflection point for them?
Yeah, good question. It really starts with the bottom line. Their trailing 12-month, the TTM net income, it's now sitting at $77.55 million.
$77 million, okay.
And just for listeners, TTM just means looking at the last 4 quarters combined. So it gives you a rolling picture. And honestly, that's $77 million in profit. It's a huge win for them.
Why huge? Put it in context for us.
Well, because they're coming off this massive loss, right? For the full year 2024, they reported a loss of $517.78 million.
Wow. $500 million.
Exactly. So think about that swing from burning over $500 million a year to generating, $77 million in stable rolling profit. It really shows that management has managed to navigate that really tricky transition, from just pure growth at all costs to running a more mature, efficient business.
That turnaround itself, yeah, that does build some confidence, especially proving the model can actually make money, even with zero commissions everywhere. What about the top line, revenue, and just their overall financial muscle now?
The momentum there looks pretty solid, too. TTM revenue is $457.10 million. And we're seeing strong recent growth as well. Q2 2025 revenue, for instance, hit $131.5 million. That's up a hefty 46% year over year.
46%. Okay, so they're hitting profit without stalling out on growth. That's key.
Precisely. They're getting that profit inflection and keeping the top-line growth engine running.
Now, when I hear about a company that was, like you said, burning cash so aggressively not long ago, I immediately wonder about stability. How strong is the balance sheet now they've made this turn?
This is where it gets really interesting. There's a great signal of financial strength here. If you look at their enterprise value, it's sitting around $4.19 billion. But their market cap is significantly higher at $5.77 billion.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. Why does the enterprise value being lower than the market cap matter so much?
Right. So market cap is just the total value of all the shares out there. Enterprise value, though, it's basically the market cap minus any cash the company has plus any debt. So when the EV is substantially less than the market cap, like it is here, it's a really strong sign the company's sitting on a big pile of net cash.
Meaning cash well beyond their debts.
It's exactly. Cash far exceeding their current liabilities. And that kind of financial flexibility, it's not just about stability. It's crucial for funding those big global expansion plans they have. Plus, their cash flow is strong, too. The price-to-free cash flow ratio is about 14.62, showing they're good at converting those earnings into actual cash.
And that funding capability, that global expansion, it leads us right into their operational growth engine, which feels like their real differentiator, especially against the U.S.-focused players, the crypto strategy and that global reach.
Yeah, absolutely. Webull isn't just, dipping a toe in digital assets. They are diving in pretty aggressively. The big move recently was reintroducing crypto trading for U.S. residents, integrated right onto the main platform.
Seamlessly, right?
Yes, seamless. So U.S. investors can get access to over 50 digital assets. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, the big ones, and others 24/7, right there alongside their stocks and options.
That 247 access is definitely something the old guard struggles with on the same scale. It must make them way more appealing to digitally native investors. And this isn't just a U.S. thing, is it?
No, not at all. That global footprint is a core part of their edge. They've already expanded crypto trading into Brazil, and they've got plans for, further global rollout. To really support this, they formally integrated Webull Pay LLC as an official subsidiary back in October. Structurally, that's a pretty critical move.
Okay, Webull Pay. Why the focus there? Is it just branding or something more?
It's mostly about, I think, regulatory positioning. Consolidating their digital assets business under a specific entity like Webull Pay, it clearly sets them up to adapt to whatever future regulations come down the pike, especially in the U.S. and Europe where fintech rules are always shifting.
Right.
It signals they see crypto as a long-term, scalable, and importantly, regulated revenue stream. not just some, temporary trading fad.
And speaking of scale, it sounds like the user base is actually responding to this whole strategy. What are the operational numbers telling us? Are people signing up?
Oh, yeah. The recent data, sort of Q3, Q4 2025, shows really quantifiable success. Registered users, they jumped 18% year over year to hit 24.9 million.
Almost 25 million. Wow.
Yeah, and customer assets are at an all-time high $15.9 billion. And trading activity itself is surging. Equity notional volume was up 58%, hitting $161 billion.
Those are big numbers. It definitely confirms that tech-first approach is hitting home with younger millennial and Gen Z investors globally.
Exactly. And that appeal, combined with the global footprint, gives them diversification benefits that, most domestic U.S. brokers just don't have. By operating across different regions, different asset classes, they aren't totally reliant on just U.S. trading volume or, say, U.S. interest rates.
It's like they're building a bit of a defensive moat, right? In an industry where commissions are basically zero, scale and those diversified revenues seem like the only path to sustaining that $77 million profit we talked about.
That's the strategy, yeah. Maintain profitability through scale and diversification.
Okay, so this strong fundamental story, we've got profitability, we've got cash, global growth, crypto. It brings us squarely to the valuation question. Because the fundamentals sound great, but the stock price seems to be, well, telling a very different story. Why by now?
Right. This is where it gets really interesting and, frankly, a bit confusing if you just look at the chart.
Yeah.
The stock's currently trading around $11.51. This is as of late October to 25. And this price point, analysts are calling it an exceptional entry opportunity. Why? Because the stock is trading roughly 85% below its 52-week high.
85%. Below the high of $79.56. That's not just a discount. That's like a fire sale.
It's a massive compression of value, absolutely. But, you have to ask, is that discount justified for some reason we're missing? Or is the market just sort of blind to the fact that they literally turned $500 million of losses into actual profit?
Well, what does Wall Street think? Are analysts buying the turnaround story?
The analyst community seems to think the market's got it wrong. Wall Street has a moderate buy consensus rating right now, which is, solid vote of confidence. And the consensus price target, it's sitting at $18.50.
Right, $18.50 from $11.51. That implies what, like 60.73% upside from where it is now?
Exactly. Over 60% upside implied by the consensus target. And what's really compelling about that $18.50 target is how tight the range is.
Oh.
Yeah, the analyst targets contributing to that consensus fall between $18 and $19. That's a very narrow range. It signals pretty strong conviction among the analysts covering it. They're not just throwing darts. They seem to agree on the stock's immediate potential.
Okay, strong consensus, big implied upside. Now, beyond the fundamentals, you mentioned something technical. For portfolio building, a negative beta.
Yes, negative beta. It's at negative 0.14. Let's quickly unpack that for listeners. What does a negative beta actually mean for you as an investor?
Yeah, what's the practical effect?
It's basically like an anti-market tool, in theory. Beta measures how much a stock tends to move in relation to the overall market, usually the S&P 500. A negative beta, like Webull's 0.14, suggests the stock tends to move independently or maybe even inversely to the general market direction.
So if the S&P tanks, Webull might just sit there or maybe even pick up a bit.
Potentially, yes, or at least not fall as much. So in today's, let's face it, pretty uncertain economic environment, Webull could offer a genuine portfolio diversification tool. An asset that doesn't just follow the herd down.
Interesting. So it could be attractive for managers looking for like a true hedge against market swings.
That's the idea behind seeking out negative beta stocks, yeah.
Okay, so we've got a lot of positives stacking up. Profitability turnaround, global growth, crypto adoption, this huge valuation discount, potential diversification benefits. We have to talk about the risks. What's the market seeing that justifies that massive 85% haircut?
Right. We absolutely need to balance the thesis. There are 4 major risks we should highlight. First, just the intense competition. It is absolutely brutal out there. Yeah, it's fierce. Webull is up against giants, right? Robinhood, Interactive Brokers, even the traditional guys like Schwab who are adapting fast. They're all pushing tech, pushing zero commissions. It just constantly squeezes Webull's margins. They have to keep innovating just to stay in the game.
Makes sense. What's next?
Second risk is revenue volatility. Their income still relies pretty heavily on transaction-based revenue. How often retail traders are clicking buy or sell.
Right, payment for order flow and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of revenue is tied directly to overall market volatility and, frankly, retail excitement or euphoria. If the market goes quiet, if trading volumes drop, then a big chunk of their revenue stream could dry up fast. Now, they are trying to mitigate this, strategically growing subscription services, but it's still a major factor to watch.
Okay, so competition, revenue reliance, what else?
This leads to probably the biggest red flag, at least that I see when digging into the numbers, the accelerated growth in shares outstanding.
Ah, dilution risk. How bad is it?
Well, the quarterly growth rate recently reported for shares outstanding was staggering, 209.67%.
Whoa, over 200% quarterly.
Quarterly. Now, this could be from things like equity compensation for employees, which is common in tech, or maybe strategic investments like PIPEs used to fund that global push we talked about. But either way, it represents potentially significant dilution for anyone holding the stock right now.
And that dilution, that could absolutely be why the price is so compressed, right? If you're effectively tripling the share count, you need absolutely massive growth in the underlying business just to keep the share price from falling. The market's clearly worried about that.
That's very likely a big part of the valuation story, yes. It's kind of the cost of doing business when you're expanding that aggressively.
Okay, what's the fourth risk?
Finally, just the sheer complexity of compliance, that global strategy. It's a strength, definitely, but it's also an immense administrative headache.
Oh, I bet. Multiple countries, multiple sets of rules.
Exactly. Operating across North America, Europe, Asia-Pacific, emerging markets. It means they have to navigate and comply with regulations in, like, more than a dozen different jurisdictions globally, all with their own quirks.
That sounds expensive and slow.
It is. Huge compliance costs, hiring legal teams, tailoring software for each market, constantly applying for licenses.
Bad idea.
It can really slow down deployment and delay entry into potentially lucrative markets if they hit a major regulatory snag somewhere. It's just an ongoing high-cost operational burden they have to manage.
Okay. So we've balanced the thesis, incredible turnaround and growth potential on one side versus really tough competition, dilution risk, and regulatory hurdles on the other. Let's pivot then to the near-term triggers. What could actually push Webull stock towards that $18.50 analyst target relatively soon?
Right, catalysts. The most immediate and probably highest impact event is their Q3 2025 earnings report. It's scheduled for November 23rd, 2025.
Just around the corner.
Exactly. Investors are going to be watching this one like hawks. They'll want confirmation that the TTM profitability is really sustainable, not just a one-off. They'll be looking at user growth metrics again. And critically, everyone will focus on management's guidance for 2026.
Yeah, guidance is key.
A solid beat on earnings and strong guidance here. That could absolutely trigger some rapid momentum and start closing that huge 85% valuation gap pretty quickly.
And their product roadmap gives us another potential catalyst soon after, right?
It does. We've got that planned expansion of crypto trading into new global markets. That's slated for November 30th, 2025, just a week after the earnings report. Seeing them execute quickly on that global strategy, turning promises into action, that could also boost sentiment.
Okay, earnings, crypto expansion, looking a bit further out into the new year.
Then we'll be watching for the institutional investor 13F filings. Those are scheduled for January 8th, 2026. If we see large, established investment firms starting to build positions or adding to existing ones, that provides important validation. Professional capital coming in can help overcome some of that market skepticism.
Makes sense. Big money moving in gets noticed. And finally, there are always those whispers, right? The speculative stuff.
Yeah, and we should definitely stress these are unconfirmed market rumors. But you do hear chatter, things like potential entry into the Asia-Pacific crypto market, maybe leveraging some specific regional regulatory clarity there, speculation about a major marketing partnership with a big fintech influencer before the holidays, and just ongoing rumors about potential M&A activity, maybe in the digital wallet or payment space to broaden their offering.
Right, purely speculative, but it shows the company is perceived as being active, looking for moves.
Exactly. While you can't invest based on rumors, they do indicate the company is likely exploring ways to accelerate growth beyond just their current organic path.
So wrapping this all up, what does it mean for you, the listener, considering Webull right now? It seems like a really strong, although definitely complex investment case. You've got this massive profitability swing, aggressive global plans, especially in crypto, but it's trading at this just unprecedented discount to its recent highs.
Yeah, the thesis seems to hold potential for different types of investors, actually. For, say, short-term traders, that upcoming November 23rd earnings report looks like a really significant high-probability catalyst to potentially play. While for longer-term investors, it might be about buying into that structural growth story, the global adoption of digital brokerage platforms at what looks like a very depressed price.
It really makes you think, considering just how quickly Webull flipped that switch, going from losing $500 million to achieving stable profit. Are we perhaps underestimating management's ability to execute here? And if so, is that 60% upside consensus target from analysts actually kind of conservative for a company that's already proven it can generate earnings, even in this brutal zero commission world?